Express your opinion. You can be the one to make a difference. You can be the one, it's your decision. You can be the one, it's up to you. You gotta choose. All we gotta do is stay together. We gotta treat our women better. Teamwork, make the dream work. I'm sick of seeing RP painted on the front of a t-shirt. Instead of talking down on the next man, give him a hand and help him get back up. We gotta stop the hate, we gotta stop the hate, and spread the love. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice.
We can make a difference if we try. We can be the change that's in our lives. All we gotta do is work together. We gotta raise our children better. We gotta stop the hate, and spread the love.
One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. Your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. What's going on in the world today? Tune in and take a listen. One voice, we on a mission. We gotta stop the violence and stop the killing. Cops certain blacks like we don't matter. Problem at the problem and we need us. We gotta speak up, we gotta set standards. We gotta protest, we need to make banners. What's your thoughts? Tell us your ideas. What's your thoughts? Express your opinion. You can be the one to make a difference. You can be the one, it's your decision. You can be the one, it's up to you. You gotta choose. All we gotta do is stay together. We gotta treat our women better. Teamwork, make the dream work. I'm sick of seeing RP painted on the front of a t-shirt. Instead of talking down on the next man, give him a hand and help him get back up. We gotta stop the hate, we gotta stop the hate, and spread the love. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice.
We can make a difference if we try.
One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice.
Welcome to the One Mic, One Voice show, building the collective conscience, a show that is created to give space where your voice, ideas, and informed opinions can be heard, appreciated, and yea, debated. I am Michael Eric Owen.
And I am DT.
Oh, man. We back in the studio.
Man, it's good to be back. Had to take a day off last week. Bury one of our ancestors.
Yeah.
But I'm back, man. And happy as ever to be back on the show.
Well, you know, as was extended during the week when I heard about the loss, again, you know, my condolences to you, your family, Jessica. You know, it's the course of life, and we have to deal with it with grace and dignity. And I know that's exactly what happened. And it's good, man. It's beautiful outside. You know, the weather has shifted, and I'm happy, man, because I didn't move down here for this cold weather. I'm like, man, I feel like I was back in Wisconsin.
Now wait, Mike.
No, really. For a couple of days, it was like, man, I had to put the gloves on.
I'm gonna have to call your boy Ken, man.
Say,
I'm gonna tell Ken you're getting softer, man.
So it's worse than it even was before, right? You know, all my Wisconsinites listening in going, man, Mike, what happened to you? Well, warm weather, you know, by way of Arizona than here. Oh, man, I'm definitely
spoiled,
man.
Spoiled.
You know, I'm good until we get to about 88. You know, once we hit 90, then it's, man. You know, it might as well swing the other way because I can't deal with the heat like
right.
that. So I am, man, I'm happy. Today is in the 60s.
It's a nice one out there today.
Oh, man, we're going to get out there and enjoy that. But we got a show to do titled Continuing to Fight Together. We got a great show. We got a great guest. We're not going to even, well, they probably been looking to see. Maybe I shouldn't even announce that, man. I spoiled the surprise.
And usually it's me, right? Usually I'm like, okay, yeah, we're with everybody in the studio right now. It's like, oh, wait, DT, stop. Let's set it up first.
Right. But we got a great guest, and she's going to be joining us here in just a second. But, man, I had a great opportunity this past week. Many of you know. Again, shout out to all our listeners all across the globe, on the continent of Africa, United Kingdom, you name it. They're listening in all throughout the states. We just appreciate your support. We appreciate your comments. So, please, today we have a very, I think, interesting conversation, and we want to hear from you. But I had a great opportunity to be at John Marshall High School in partnership with the Thunder through the Ralph Ellison Foundation, where we, a couple teachers there, were studying Invisible Man with the students. And so we brought in, or I should say the Thunder brought in Josh Hustis from the Thunder, the 6'7", smooth brother from Stanford. Brother got a 31 on the ACT. Yeah, he's pretty smart,
no
man.
Dummy.
No dummy, man. And so we were on the panel together with him. Me and my good friend John Selvage was there with me, and we had a tremendous discussion with the students. I was very impressed with the students at John Marshall and how they went beyond the surface with Invisible Man. And if you have not read Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man, I'm going to tell you, you need to get into it.
You're missing out, folks. I mean, it's a ride. I can read that book over and over again.
And get something else out of it, right?
Yeah. Just the way that Ralph was able to craft that literature is beyond my understanding at the time that he wrote that work.
Man, we need to do a show just on that, and we can. I got some thoughts regarding that. But coming up, folks, February 24th, 2018 is the Ralph Ellison Foundation Gala, which is titled A Night with Ralph Ellison. And I believe our guest is going to be there. We're going to tell a little story about that. That's been in the making for some years, by the way. I think we're going to get into that. But it's a night of music, jazz music. It's a night of dance, not just contemporary dance, but dramatic dance. Also poetry, readings from Ellison's works. Hey, the brother last year that did the poem, how was that?
Phenomenal.
Coming from the backside.
I mean, why are you even asking me about it? Like, the quality of this gala is going to be like on tens, right? And so, I mean, everybody that brings their talent to the forefront on this day is always a phenomenal thing. From the dancing to the reciting of the poetry, to the speakers. It's just all around a quality event.
It's great, folks, at the Oklahoma History
Center. And you get to put
Center.
your Sunday's best on.
Oh, man, it's a black tie affair. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's at the Oklahoma History Center, February 24th, 6 p.m. You can get your tickets now. Just go to RalphEllisonFoundation.org. And it's not that expensive either.
No, it's just like around $250,000 a ticket. But hey, right. Who's counting money these days?
Yeah, who's counting money these days? Black in Studio, of course, is a sponsor of the event, along with others. There's a play based upon the movie Barbershop. That's going to be a soft opening here in Oklahoma City. Melvin Childs is the director. He's originally from here, but he lives in L.A., and my daughter happens to be in the play. So she's got a major role in it. It's going to be here the 16th, 17th, and 18th at OCCC. I'll be coming out with more information for a soft opening on that. Then it's going to be in L.A. and traveling around the country. So, yeah, real excited about, having baby girl back in
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully we can get some of the cast members on here. Monique is starring in it. So hopefully we can get some of the cast members, the directors on here to talk about, the play and, just to talk it up, man. That's what we do, right?
That'd be cool to get Monique on here.
She's Monique kind of hot right now.
Facing a lot of fire. Right?
Yeah, she is, man. Well, but I don't know if let me say nothing. I would love to have Monique on here. Let me just say that. I think she is a phenomenal talent. And we have to pick our own battles, right? I mean, I'm not nobody's judge. Also, our brother C.J. Perry, man, he's doing this program with a few high schools that Black in Studios, as well as One Mic, One Voice, will be one of the sponsors of it with the Black Panther movie that's coming out.
Doing it for the kids.
Yeah, so they got raising money not only to take them, but to show them a good time, and it's got a little curriculum based upon that. Generate some discussion. Going to try to get him on the show, as well as some of the students, kind of talk about their experience and reflection on that. So, man, it's a lot coming up. Yeah. We got Black History Month just right around the corner. I'm so excited about that. Folks, you know what? There is a tradition of collaboration between the Jewish community and the Black community, and we're going to get into that, man. I have my good friend here. I'm not going to introduce her. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, I have to introduce her properly because she is worthy
let me
of
get
that
the red
sort
carpet
of.
real
quick. Get it. I think she's standing on it.
Oh.
So she.
That's beat me to it.
That's how quick she moves, folks. We got a great show. Hey, get yourself some tea. Special mix. We'll be right back.
This is Josh K.
And I am Leah Marie.
And when we listen to podcasts, we always listen to
One Mic, One Voice. You can change the world, it's your choice.
Your choice.
This is DT of the One Mic, One Voice podcast. Just want to let you guys know you can go over to iTunes and search us at One Mic, One Voice, and be sure to rate and review our episodes. Let us know about any feedback that you have and what you enjoy about the episodes. Also, you can go over to Stitcher, where you can get the latest and freshest episodes of our podcast streamed directly to your smartphone or iPad. No downloading or syncing. How cool. Real smooth. Also, we just like to take the time to thank you for your time and for your energy and for spending time with us as we discuss the historical record of our time.
Welcome back. Man, I am excited because not only, I should say, her appearance on the show has been in the making. Her coming to the gala has been in the making. And folks, we have in the studio with us Rabbi Harris, who became the spiritual leader of Temple B'nai Israel in Oklahoma City in 2012. She is the fifth rabbi, DT, to serve that congregation since founding in 1903. Rabbi Harris' community work in Oklahoma City includes interfaith dialogue, guest lecturing, and multi-faith prayer services, which I have personally been there to witness that. At the temple, she enjoys serving with a professional and volunteer team, offering religious education, pastoral care, prayer, and social action opportunities. Although she was born Jewish, her formal study of the religion did not begin until college. Through learning and living Judaism, Rabbi Harris has become more passionate about civil rights, more compassionate for those who suffer, more open to universal truth, and overall a better human being. Man, let me tell you something. First of all, I'm a fan of Rabbi Harris. I met her. How did we meet? Welcome to One Mic, One Voice. How did we meet, Rabbi?
We met at a large community gathering, MLK weekend, and I delivered a prayer at the Oklahoma History Center, I believe it was.
Absolutely.
And you came to me afterwards, and you gave me your card, and you said, "We have to talk."
But see, she leaving out. She leaving out. See, they know.
Very aggressive.
Yeah. See, they know when I hear. I don't know what that thing is, man. I don't know. It's a harmony. It's a moment. I don't know what it is, but when you hear it and coming from an individual, I mean, you don't need anything else. And I wanted to connect with you. What she leaving out is I ran her down in the parking lot. That's what she's leaving out, right? She was leaving the event. I ran her down in the parking lot, and I said, "Hey, look, take my card. We need to talk." And ever since then, we have been really good friends. We've worked together on multiple projects, and Oklahoma City is a better place because of you and the work that you do. I really mean that. And so having you on the show, it's been in the making, and we want to just kind of find out what you've been up to. I mean, we just had MLK Day. Tell our audience exactly, what does the temple do? What do you do? Because this is a history that's been going on for a while. Talk a little bit about the Jewish community's role in MLK Day.
It has been going on for a while, and we're pretty proud of it, actually. This was our 30th program, annual program, commemorating Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth and work and his legacy. We work with the NAACP, and the temple on Sunday night of the weekend brings in a program that we hope is of wide interest and appeal for the community. This year we brought in a woman whose name is Jo Ivester, who wrote a book called The Outskirts of Hope. And with Jo, we brought in her sister, Ruth Reed Thornton, from California. Jo moved to the Mississippi Delta when she was about 10 years old. Her father was a physician who joined the War on Poverty, and he was a white Jewish man living in the North who was hired to go in and open a clinic in an all-black town in the Mississippi Delta. It was deemed to be the poorest part of the nation, and they wanted to try to establish a healthier life and to have a clinic, etc. So at 10 years old, she was brought down there, and she talks about her reflections and what it was like. The Outskirts of Hope is a memoir from her mother's perspective of that time. They were there for about 2 years. After her parents divorced, her father remarried a woman who was originally from, I want to say Jamaica, who had a daughter whose father was African American, and Joe's father, adopted his second wife's daughter, thus becoming the father of an African-American girl. And so the two of them came and spoke about their recollections and their different upbringings, really, what race has meant to them, both as activists. Her sister, Ruth wrote a curriculum called Black to the Future Experience, which covers 4,000 years of Black history and is written for, I think, middle school, maybe a little bit like 5th grade or something students. Just phenomenal.
Wow. So that went on that night. The temple, actually back in December, I brought 5 of our high school students on a civil rights journey to Atlanta, Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery. And those 5 students, the Friday night before MLK Day, they came and participated in services and reflected on what it was like for them to walk the Edmund Pettus Bridge and to go to the Rosa Parks Museum and to walk the streets of Montgomery and to see the 16th Street Church where the bombing occurred and all of those very powerful moments, which was affirming to hear the words of the next generation committed to civil rights. Yeah, I mean, everybody needs to go on a pilgrimage like that, right? To be in that actual space and to feel, not only to be educated, but to feel the environment in which these great things took place. You also, I mean, what? Talk a little bit about, because we've done work. I guess you would call it in the realm of social conscious work in the different film screenings and discussions that we've done. Talk a little bit about, and because when we've done that, we've had such a turnout from the Jewish community, right? I remember the time that you were on the panel and we had that discussion, even for the film screenings. Talk a little bit about just that sort of energy that's involved in the temple.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's an energy that is in the Jewish community at large. The temple has been involved in interfaith dialogue, in interracial dialogue, and all kinds of really great community stuff for as long as anybody can remember, far preceding my tenure, for sure. But in the Jewish community in general, I think that there is a resonance with what does it mean to live with privilege? What does it mean to live without privilege? There's a whole interesting piece from Jewish history of kind of when Jews in North America became white, because we used to just be Jews, and that was its own class of second-class citizenship. And there's an interesting history from the 20th century of upward mobility and how that shifted and what that means. This week in the Torah portion, so we read scriptures divided up all throughout the year in set aspects, and we last week were reading about leaving Egypt and being enslaved to Pharaoh, and I think that a lot of that conversation goes on all through the Jewish community.
And how large would you say the Jewish community is in Oklahoma City? How
small is the Jewish community in Oklahoma City? So we don't really know. We don't do a census, but estimates are somewhere maybe between 1,000 and 2,000 people.
Okay.
So it's and the 2,000 I think is being pretty generous.
Okay.
So the temple's the large congregation. We have 300 households.
Okay. We have a comment from Eliza. She says she was wondering if the rabbi takes her work outside of Oklahoma. Does she travel to other states to do lecture, etc.?
Actually, last summer, I was pretty widely published through the Union for Reform Judaism, and they have a weekly email that goes out and talks about the Torah. That was a pretty wide publication, on occasion, but not too much. My job is very full-time serving the temple.
Absolutely.
Dedicated.
Talk about the interfaith work that you do. Because there's a big interfaith coalition here in Oklahoma. You wouldn't know that, right? From the from the politicians and the things that are coming out of Oklahoma, you wouldn't know that. But talk about that interfaith work that you're part of.
We have many strong interfaith groups in Oklahoma City, but the two most prominent are the Interfaith Alliance and the Oklahoma Conference of Churches Religions United Committee. One of the exciting things that the Religions United Committee did just over a year ago was take a group of 22 travelers, 10 Christians, 7 Jews, 5 Muslims, to Israel and the Palestinian territories. We went to a hot spot of conflict in the world so that we could practice the religious, spiritual practice of listening. And then we could ask ourselves, how do we apply that to what we do in Oklahoma? Because so often conflict is us against them, me against you. And how do we take that and say, let's listen and understand another side? It was incredible. All throughout Oklahoma City, surprisingly enough, I think, for those who might be attuned to some of what goes on in our Capitol building, there's so much openness and interest in other people, and I'm very privileged to be a part of that conversation.
And I know you work closely with our Muslim community, right? We had Brother Adam on here, and we had Iman on here as well. Talk about that relationship, because I think a lot of people think, you know, when you listen to the mainstream media, you know, you get the sense that these silos in which the religious communities live in, that they can't see eye to eye, they can't work together. Talk about that, because I know they love you and respect you, and vice versa. Talk about that relationship and how has that developed over time?
It's just been incredible for me. So one of the things that happens because of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is people really make the mistake of conflating Israel with all Jews and Palestinians with all Muslims, and then everybody thinks that we hate each other, which is not true in Israel and Palestinian territories, and it's not true in the U.S. It has been an amazing journey to get to know more about Islam from Muslims. That is the hugest gift, because why would we listen to what other people say about any group of people? You want to understand an individual, talk to that individual, talk to who they are. So yeah, we have so much in common. Judaism and Islam have so much in common. And there have been times in history where we have worked together for greatness. Those things tend to get lost in times of political strife.
And I mean, all the great religions have so much in common, right? I mean, it baffles me. But as Black people, we know this inference to all blacks, right? You know, even the question that I get a lot of times is, what does the Black community think? You know, and it's kind of like, well, I you know, maybe you should ask some Black people.
Wait,
right?
I have a funny story about that, actually. One of my daughters heard something very negative. She was maybe in first grade, and one of her friends said something like, well, I don't think that I can be friends with you because you're Jewish, or something like that. I don't know what it was. And I took the mom aside one day in the parking lot at the elementary school. This was when we lived in Kansas. And I said to the mom, you know, I'm sure, or all Jewish people are bad, or like it was something bad. And I took the mom aside and I said, you know, I would want to know if my kid had said this, and I know I'm sure that there was no harm intended, but I just wanted you to know that this is what your daughter said to my daughter. And the mom looked at me and she said, I just don't know where that came from. I mean, one of my best friends is Black. What?
Right. Well, that makes sense, right? Okay,
now I totally understand.
Right.
You've suddenly cleared everything up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's that justifies her ability to befriend a Black person. And how
a Jew, no, a Jewish person. Yeah, I mean.
Well, you know what? I want to get into. We did this movie screening. The movie was titled "From Swastika to Jim Crow."
Yeah.
And I want to get into this conversation. We'll set it up when we get back. We have a clip from it But man, this is one of those shows, man, that I don't know if I want it to end. So I don't know how much time you got, Rabbi. You might have to get somewhere, but we're having a good time up in here. Folks, listen, we will be right back.
This is Dr. Laura Gillette, and when I listen to podcasts, I always listen to the One Mic, One Voice show.
This is Richard Taplin, host of Blackest Studios' The Black Box. Join Elijah Bailey and myself as we interview entrepreneurs as they share their stories of passion and how it motivates them to strive forward. We also explore new topics on self-improvement. If you want to listen to our show, simply search Blackened Studios on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, or Stitcher. And be sure to follow us at Blackened Studios on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want to catch all the shows that record here at Blackened Studios, simply go to the website, blackenedstudios.com. And remember, it's Blackened.
What?
All right, welcome back. We have our good friend Moses Dupree in here. He is sitting in today. We like to have, Rabbi Harris happens to be one of his favorite people on the planet, so that's why he's here. But we love to have folks come down, sit in the studio, see how we do what we do. There's nothing done in secret.
People a little shocked, though, when we hit them with it live.
Huh?
I said, some people a little shocked, though, when we tell them that it's
Yeah.
live.
Yeah. That's the only way you got to do it, baby. We don't, we beyond the tape and edit days. We live and die. We live and die by our words.
Turn the mic on.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I don't want to die by my words.
Right. And so this event we had with the Ralph Ellison Foundation and other organizations, Respect Diversity Foundation. And I think the Temple was part of it as well. Mm-hmm. And we did a screening, public screening of the movie Swastika to Jim Crow. And it's about the Jewish scholars that fled Nazi Germany and came to the United States. And really the only place they could find opportunities were in black colleges. And so folks, take a listen, and we're going to come and we're going to talk about it.
There was every day a blow, every day something new, every day a new decree, a new law, which of course in many cases was directed against Jews.
At the age of 15 or so, I had to drop out because of the kind of harassment that was faced there also. So by that time, I was a very convinced and opinionated rebel who was going to fight for justice.
Having been cast out themselves from Europe, they could appreciate, as few others could, what it meant to be a pariah. And therefore, they took it upon themselves to participate in this enterprise of teaching in segregated institutions of higher learning.
Mississippi was so segregated. It's really hard to imagine. And in fact, Tougaloo College was called by white folks Cancer College because they saw it as a cancer on the southern body politic. And I guess in a sense it was trying to destroy segregation as a system.
The sheriff that was all powerful in these small southern communities knew everyone. They kept tabs on any outsider. If you had relatives visiting you with an out-of-state license plate, I mean, they were likely to come around and ask you or your neighbors, who's there? Who is this visiting out of town? It couldn't have been a lot worse under a kind of fascist regime.
I could assume that black people, black students had much more interest in and also much more understanding of movements like fascism and Nazism or racism, etc., etc. And that it was therefore relatively easy to teach them something which may not have been as easy as that at a white college.
This notion of man's inhumanity to man was not foreign to African American citizens. And so, yes, I think there was not as much shock, perhaps, as it would be empathy, because when you've been through slavery, you're not shocked by anything that people will do.
Well, I think the heart of the story is the way the Jewish refugees and the blacks understood mutual racial terror and oppression, albeit from very different historical perspectives and histories. So there was a common understanding.
Wow.
Wow. I think it's interesting how he kind of explained that the black students were a little bit more educated in the isms, you know, and I think in our perspective, you know, we become the experts on all the isms, you know, and it's quite scary because skepticism also become one that's very highly attuned to. You can't trust everything, and when you've seen everything, it's like, okay, what these folks about to do now, you know?
No, that's a great point. I mean, when you live under oppression, right, one would come to the mindset that any oppression is wrong, right? And the courage that it took to flee, number one, right, but to come to the United States and to come alongside a group of folks that are still under oppression. You know, the mindset would be, I'm getting as far away from this as possible because what I was dealing with was hell over here. I don't want to come deal with hell over here, right? But a unique relationship that was fostered. And I think that speaks to, you know, our continuing to fight together, this collaboration. It speaks to the nature of the Jewish and the black relationship, that there are shared experiences, you know, although different, you know, slavery, the Holocaust, but still systems of oppression, extinction, subjugation, right? And I think we have come through that with an understanding that many groups cannot, right? Now, I wish I didn't have that understanding. Right? I mean, it's not like you carry it as a badge of honor, right? But it's something that I think you can't shake the experience and the history in which one has traveled.
I think that we have to be careful not to lose it, honestly. We wish that we could shake it. We can't shake it. I wish I didn't have that background to know. But I think that the danger comes when we don't remember. So, like I mentioned before, in some ways, Jewish people have become just another white group in the United States, except for when, you know, certain people need a scapegoat. And then we've got Charlottesville, and FBI statistics from 2016 is that religious motivated hate crimes are still mostly against Jews and that kind of thing. But I think that everything boils back down to one-on-one relationships and caring about people. Just people, and that's it. Because there was a break in Jewish-black relations at the end of the 1960s, well, mid-1960s and beyond, when the Jewish community did seem to be operating out of a privileged perspective and not behaving as much as partners as more, well, let us tell you how to do this. And it really broke down the relationship in a negative way. And I think that building that back up, one-to-one relationships about people just being people, In a similar way, today there are communities in the African American community that are more aligned with, for instance, Palestinians. And my relationship certainly with Imam and Chasi has taught me so much about there's not an us and them, but it's created an us and them where there are disconnects between people and even individual people because of these larger issues that really aren't about me directly or you directly, but we take sides on these things, and it hurts us locally.
And I would even go as far as to say, when those divisions take place, those on the side that will not entertain some sort of reconciliation cannot even articulate why they're distanced themselves from a certain group, right? I think we become comfortable in that distance because it's easier. Well, sometimes it's easier to just lavish in the power position that you have.
Yes.
Right. Than to join forces and share that sort of power and vision and so forth, right? And I believe also that's why our communities still suffer because of division like that.
Oh, I agree. And I think that so much of that division also comes from fear. And I don't know about you. I don't particularly like being vulnerable. That's not in my constitution. I don't like it. But to listen to somebody else's suffering without having or without saying, well, but let me tell you about my suffering. To listen to somebody else's suffering and to take it in and to acknowledge and affirm someone else's experience makes an individual, makes me vulnerable, because now I have to face the way that I have not suffered like you. Without saying, well, but you haven't suffered like I. Like, no, just let it be. And we're afraid of that, I think.
Yeah, I think on multiple levels, people are afraid to validate someone else's experience. And I think that vulnerability is at the center of that. But it also is, I think, although a person may be vulnerable, there's a little hubris there because you're teaching me now. And how dare you teach me, right? When you start talking about your struggles, right? All of a sudden, you're telling me something I don't know. And if I'm in a position where I want to always know more than you,
right?
I can't validate that.
Right. There's a wonderful teacher named Rabbi Mark Borovitz. He runs a place in LA called Beit Teshuvah, which is for addiction recovery. It's a Jewish program. But he talks about us making ourselves right-sized. So if I have really low self-esteem, I think really badly of myself, I'm not right-sized. I'm too small for the dignity that I deserve as a human being created in God's image. But if I'm so full of myself that I can't make any room for anybody else, also not right-sized. Yeah. And the humility that it takes to make ourselves right-sized.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
You gonna steal it, bro?
I stolen.
Yes.
Just, give credit to Rabbi Borovitz.
Stolen.
You brought up something, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but I'll tell you, we'll come back. But, I just, these people that deny the Holocaust.
Oh, God.
I'm like, how do they even exist on this planet? I mean, we live in the information age where, I just don't, it's hard for me to wrap my head around people that, and especially quote unquote intelligent people, right? Learned people, that deny historical events that it doesn't even take them. Willie over there can go and find him. You know what I mean? Like
it's objective fact. It's just objective fact. Well, and and my grandfather's parents were murdered in Theresienstadt, and I have one set of great-grandparents that had to go into hiding, and I have a set of grandparents that escaped in 1941. No, it's unbelievable. It's just objective fact. It's insulting to the intelligence that God put into human beings.
Yeah. And you know, and again, I want to, you know, I don't want to deviate too far, but I'm glad I have you here, and you brought up a topic that we did a show on. We did a 3-part series on white nationalism.
Wow.
Folks, if you haven't, please go out there and listen to it. But, you know, you brought up Charlottesville and this idea, these archaic ideas that somehow Jews and blacks and Latinos are trying to replace people, you know, in this country of immigrants, right? Like
in this country of the white man who came in to replace the Native American, the red man, or whatever. Like, it's such ridiculous divisions. In Judaism, there is a story about why humanity is created from just Adam and Eve, just 2 people, you know, because God could have done that in any old way that God wanted. And the answer is so that no one person can say, hey, my ancestry is better than yours. Because at the end of the day, and by the way, I approach Scripture as sacred myth, not as scientific fact. Again, the brain that God gave me. So in terms of that sacred mythology, our ancestors want us to know that nobody's ancestry is superior to anyone else's. So forget about that and worry about how do we achieve the best of honor and dignity that we can as humans.
Absolutely. We have a comment.
Eliza chipped back in. She says that she's a Catholic and have heard her priests talk about African Americans suffering just as much as Jewish people. I didn't think there should be a comparison, as each are a tragic story on their own.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Maybe we should visit a few new churches also.
I mean, there just should not ever be a competition between people suffering, both individually and nationally. It's just cruel.
Yeah. Not good. Folks, having a great discussion here, continuing to fight together. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, this is Roxy Davis.
And this is Deborah Burris. And we are
The Roxy by Design Show. Our show is designed to bring healing as we share our stories while God redesign our lives.
So take a ride with us.
So you can find us at
Podbean, iTunes,
Facebook and Twitter,
and
blackandstudios.com. So thank you everyone for listening to The Roxy by Design Show. You have a blessed day. And
we love you.
Thank you for downloading this episode. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play Music, or whatever podcasting library you're listening to this show on, please rate and review. Those reviews and ratings help us tremendously. We thank you.
Welcome back. We are joined in the studio. If you're just piping in, you've missed a whole lot. I'm sorry. But guess what? You can go back. You can definitely go back. It will be available for you to listen to it today. And then Richard, what are you doing? Do you even have to do anything now that me and DT are like, huh? You just have to we made sure, what we paying you? He said not enough. But we have Rabbi Harris here with us. We're having a great conversation. Our 2 communities have been working together since the dawn of this country, and there's some sound that's going to come to you if you're one of our Patreon customers. Though you get a chance to watch it as we watch it, so I suggest you become one of our Patreon customers. Just go to patreon.com/OneMic1Voice, and this particular clip here is about the March on Washington. That's all I'm going to tell you. Take a listen.
We spent some time this week marking the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and one of the most important speeches in the history of this country. But more than one man articulated a dream that day, even if the power of Martin Luther King overshadowed them. It was the toughest time slot of the day. Never mind having to follow Mahalia Jackson, the queen of gospel.
I wish I could sing.
Rabbi Joachim Prince was the last man up before Martin Luther King.
I was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime.
The horrors this rabbi witnessed in Nazi Germany in the 30s compelled him to challenge America in the 60s.
Bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problems. The most shameful and the most tragic problem is silence.
It was really marvelous to see 250,000 people. Because
Rabbi Israel Dresner, a protege of Prince's, was standing just a few feet away on the podium that day and could feel the power of Prince's message ripple through the crowd.
that really rang a bell because all sorts of clergy in America, you know, they weren't racist, they weren't bigots personally, but they just kept their mouths shut.
As the wise man once said, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Exactly, exactly.
Prinz was expelled from Germany in the late 30s and came to Newark, New Jersey.
My friend, Rabbi Prinz,
where his congregation welcomed the young Dr. King twice. So there was a direct line between the Holocaust and the American civil rights struggle?
absolutely. Jews are opposed to injustice. We are opposed to hatred and bigotry and bias and racism and exploitation and so forth. And that's what we're supposed to be opposed to.
America must not become a nation of onlookers.
As he had 3 decades before, Prinz refused to be silent and encouraged all Americans to speak up just as loudly.
America must not remain silent.
Wow. Man, hey, but you know, Rabbi Prince, right?
Yeah.
You come after Mahalia Jackson. Here's the lineup, right?
Right.
Okay, Rabbi, you coming after Mahalia, and you're coming right before Martin.
Yeah.
Right? No pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, have a
right?
good time with that. I'm thrilled that you chose that clip because a lot of times in the Jewish community, when we talk about Jewish involvement in the civil rights movement, we talk about Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was a real leader and walked alongside Dr. King across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma. And Rabbi Prince's speech on the March on Washington is really strong and powerful about what silence means. And I think that it resonates for today and issues today, and the line that we walk as leaders between making people angry because of stances that our religion teaches versus being silent and letting people be comfortable. And where do you choose those battles, and how do you hold them up?
Yeah.
Because if you make people too angry, they stop listening to you, you lose your power. It's complicated.
It is complicated. It is complicated, and it's. I like to tell people, won't name names, but I like to tell people, what is your goal? And as you say, if you make people angry, then they will turn a deaf ear to you. But if you do not articulate your point in a way that is passion, people don't listen.
Yeah.
And always keeping in mind that what is your goal? And I think Rabbi Prince is, he could have gave this speech today.
Oh, yeah.
We are silent on matters things that truly matters, things that can bring about a difference. We're silent, and we're silent because we realize that the cost might be too much. Right.
These are hard questions. Just this morning I was having a conversation with a group of people about the 10 Commandments, and somebody was saying, I think that it's too high of a bar. But I think that the purpose for those people who decide to adhere to a religion, and I do believe that it's a choice, that's the point. is to set a bar that says, no, this isn't where you're achieving to. This is where you want to get to and then surpass it. This is the minimum. And it's not always easy, but that is the point.
And to me, the as he called it, shameful, the greatest purveyors of this shamefulness today, this thing we call silence, is Christian evangelicals.
Ouch.
Okay, we've been harping about this on this show for a very long time. You have put a man in office, and this is me talking. Michael Ergoins, you put a man in office that you are complicit on anything that he does, but you accept him as being this Christian. And what I'm saying is that your silence in all of this is what continues to make people lose confidence in the very tenets of the faith that you hold so dear to yourself. That's what the problem is. That's what we're talking about. Even in the 60s, when King was out there and pastors were saying, no, you can't do that. You can't bring them little kids in there. You can't do it that way, Martin. We're not going to come out and back you and do that. It's still the same thing today. We turn a deaf ear to, and if the power of religion cannot speak truth in the face of evil, then there is no power, right? I mean, King even himself talked about when a church is more concerned about, quote unquote, saving souls than feeding and sheltering.
Right.
He talks about how the church is moribund, right? And it should close its doors. I have folks, I have pastor friends, but I'm very critical because I think religion and religious leaders have been placed in positions to speak truth to evil. And if you're not, why are you there? If I can't produce my job, why I'm not there? Why am I there? You know. But those are Michael Ergoins.
A little
one
disclaimer.
One mic, one voice. DT with me. DT with me on that one.
Yeah,
but I just think, here is a great example of someone that operated in the shadows, was friends with Dr. King, welcomed Dr. King into his temple. And we are ignorant of that sort of history that brought us so closely together. And we need to be just as close in the modern era as we were then. Because I'll ask you this, has the fight changed?
Yeah. Well, that's for sure. And I think that sometimes we're even looking at other issues that do bring us together from diverse communities. The Me Too movement is one. The Women's March is another related, but also that same kind of thing where that doesn't actually know any kind of subgroup. And if anything, the subgroup is gender identification, and we need each other in that struggle, for instance.
Absolutely. If we could only understand the principle or collaboration over ideology, right?
Yeah. But it's an interesting piece to me because so many times I find myself saying, look, okay, individual people who are Jewish are going to have their own opinion or thoughts about an issue. That doesn't mean that is Judaism's teaching or opinion about that issue. So the ideology of the religion may not be manifest in the individual person who falls into that religious practice, but then I go back to the idea of the religion is to hold the bar high. And to Rabbi Borovitz, again, talks about allowing ourselves to surrender and be defeated by a higher truth. What does it mean to be defeated by a higher truth? Let that higher truth override our hubris and ego. to work together for what is that goal? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve economic success? Some people think that that's our goal. I happen to not think that that's the ultimate goal of humanity.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk a little bit because I know you recently made a trip to back to Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about just what are your thoughts on the ongoing conflict there? What do you see that the average American person? How should they think about that conflict? Yeah. What would be your advice?
Well, at the end of our trip last January, we all decided that all anybody needs to know is #it's complicated.
Right.
So anybody who tries to tell you, oh, this is what that conflict is about, and they're done talking in 90 seconds, they're just wrong because they're making it simplistic. So that's the first thing, is that it is actually very complicated. It does involve religion. It does involve tribalism. It does involve history. It does involve modernity. It does involve sexism. It does involve racism. I mean, there's so many layers to it. The one piece that I try to remind myself is that Jews are monotheists. I mean, that is a definition of Judaism. But just because we are monotheists does not mean that God is in a monogamous relationship with us. So God's in a relationship with many people and many religions and people who aren't practicing any religion and have a beautiful relationship with God. So at some level, I believe Jerusalem is the capital of the Jewish people. I mean, it just is. But the Jewish people should not be immediately conflated with the Jewish state. So Jerusalem's the forever capital of the Jewish people. I don't know if it's the capital of another people or not. Just because it's the capital of the Jewish people doesn't mean that we should make simplistic what is the capital of the Jewish state. So it's complicated. What I wish that people would do is come with me in November to Israel and the Palestinian territories, November 25th to December 5th of this year. Anybody who is interested can send an email to religionsunitedtravel@gmail.com, and I will send them back the information of how to find out more about the trip and really see firsthand, speak to people, and focus on where there is hope. We focus in our media on the conflict, but there are people who are working on hope. March 6th, here in Oklahoma City, we have a founder of a school called Hand in Hand, which is a school in Israel that started as one campus in Jerusalem and educates Jewish and Arab, for lack of a better word. We never really know what to even call any of ourselves. So Israeli and Arab or Palestinian, just depends on the words that you use. That's another piece that's complicated. Together in high school. One of the founders is coming and speaking here in Oklahoma City on March 6th. He's receiving the Brock International Prize for Education from out in Tulsa. So while he's in the area, he's going to talk to us about the places that there are hope. And ultimately, that's as a religious leader and as somebody who strives to be in relationship with that which is greater than me, that for convenience I call God. Ultimately, that's where I think that we have to focus, stop focusing on the nationalism of who's who and more focus on, as you said, Michael, what are you doing? What's the goal? Where do you want to be?
Yeah. I like that. Focus on the hope, not on the conflict.
Title of our next show, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. Focus on the hope, not on the conflict. I tell you, Rabbi, it's been a pleasure to have you here with us in the studio. Finally, it's been we've been doing a couple of years. Been trying to get you on a couple of years, but it's exciting to have you here. Moving forward, I'm just so excited about the work that you're doing and the work that you will continue to do. And as always, I mean, any way that we can be part of that, we want to continue to do that, not just with the foundation, but with the studio, because as always, history will speak of us. somewhere in the distant future, a scribe will reach down deep into the archives of our time. And what will she find? Will she discover that we overcame our differences? Will she find that out of many we became one? Or will she find that we solved nothing and remain a divided people? Yes.
History will speak of us.
You can change the world, it's your choice.
We can make a difference if we try. We can beat the change that's in our lives. All we gotta do is work together. We gotta raise our children better. We gotta stop the hate, and spread the love.
One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice.
Today's broadcast is being brought to you by Blacken Studios. To learn more about Blacken Studios, please visit them at blackenstudios.com or visit them on their Facebook page, Blacken Studios. Today's broadcast is also being brought to you by Perry Publishing and Broadcasting. To learn more about Perry Publishing and Broadcasting, please visit their website at perrypublishingandbroadcasting.net. The opinions of the One Mic, One Voice show do not reflect the views of Blacken Studios or Perry Publishing and Broadcasting. Thank you for downloading the One Mic, One Voice show.
Thank you for downloading this episode. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play Music, or whatever podcasting library you're listening to this show on, please rate and review. Those reviews and ratings help us